Far away, in the icy wilderness of northern Russia, lies a place that seems almost unreal, Petak Island Prison, a fortress of isolation built on a frozen lake. For the men locked inside, this is not just a prison. It is a lifetime cut off from the world, surrounded by cold water, silence, and the inescapable grip of nature itself. Imagine waking up every morning knowing the same thing every inmate knows: there is no escape. Not because of walls, not because of guards, but because of the lake that traps the island year-round. In winter, the water becomes a sheet of ice stretching endlessly into the horizon. In summer, freezing waves crash against the rocky shore. This is the Russian idea of a natural prison, where nature itself becomes the perfect barrier. Petak Island holds only the most dangerous and the most forgotten. Men serving life sentences, men who will never again walk freely in the world. Their lives shrink to a small cell, strict routines, and a silence broken only by the sound of boots and keys. Inside, isolation is the true punishment. Prisoners spend most of their time alone, far from their families, far from society, and far from hope. Human contact becomes rare, sunlight becomes precious, and time feels frozen, just like the lake surrounding them. Petak Island Prison is a reminder of extreme punishment, extreme isolation, and a reality where the cold is not just outside, but slowly seeps into the soul. Petak Island Prison stands in one of the most remote and unforgiving corners of Russia, built on a tiny patch of land in the middle of a frozen lake. This location was chosen not for strategy or convenience, but for its natural brutality. For most of the year, the lake surrounding the island is covered in thick layers of ice that stretch so far into the horizon that prisoners see nothing but white emptiness. When the ice melts in summer, it turns into dark, freezing water that moves violently with the northern winds. Reaching Petak Island is itself a challenge. The journey requires traveling through dense forests, isolated villages, and narrow roads that often disappear under snow. Once a boat or ice vehicle finally reaches the island, the world feels completely cut off. The prison stands like a lonely fortress, cold walls, metal fences, and guard towers rising out of the frozen silence. There are no escape routes, no hidden paths, no nearby towns, no help even if someone tried to run. The prison's design uses nature as its strongest weapon. The freezing lake acts as an invisible barrier, stronger than concrete. Even if a prisoner managed to break out of their cell, survive the guards, and reach the outer perimeter, they would still face the deadly cold. Crossing the lake means facing temperatures that can drop low enough to freeze exposed skin within minutes. In winter, the ice may look solid, but it hides cracks and traps that can swallow a person whole. In summer, the water becomes nearly impossible to survive due to the combination of cold, distance, and violent currents. Living on Petak Island is living in isolation created by nature itself. The island seems to float in a world of ice and water, a prison within a prison, where geography and climate work together to make escape not just unrealistic, but unthinkable. Petak Island Prison is not an ordinary correctional facility. It is the final stop for the prisoners whom Russia considers too dangerous, too violent, or too unpredictable to ever re-enter society. Every man locked inside its cold concrete walls is serving a life sentence, meaning there is no countdown, no hope of parole, and no date circled on a calendar. The rest of the world moves forward year after year, but for the inmates here, time becomes a heavy weight that never lightens. These prisoners have been brought from all across Russia, transported hundreds of miles to this remote island because the authorities believe that isolation is the only environment strong enough to contain them. Many have been convicted of crimes that shocked entire communities, and the state's decision is clear. These men will spend the remainder of their lives behind bars on an island surrounded by freezing water, far from cities, families, and the world they once knew. Inside the prison, the routine reflects the severity of their sentences. Cells are small, movement is strictly controlled, and every action is monitored by guards who understand that their responsibility is not rehabilitation, but containment. Unlike other prisons where inmates attend workshops, classes, or programs, Petak Island offers very little. The life-sentence prisoners spend most of their hours in silence with limited interaction and few chances to step outside their cells. For many inmates, the psychological pressure becomes as heavy as the physical confinement. Knowing that they will never leave this island, never feel the warmth of freedom, and never again walk in a normal world slowly shapes their mindset. Over time, the harshness of their crimes is overshadowed by an even harsher reality, a life lived entirely behind metal doors, in a place where the cold is constant and hope fades like a distant memory. At Petak Island Prison, the idea of escape is not just difficult, it is almost unimaginable, because everything around the island is designed, or naturally shaped, to destroy any chance of freedom. Even before approaching walls or guards, a prisoner first faces the greatest barrier of all, the frozen lake that surrounds the island like an icy moat. In winter, the surface becomes a white desert of solid ice, stretching endlessly, but that deceptive calm hides deadly conditions. Temperatures drop so low that a single mistake, like taking off a glove or misjudging the distance, could mean instant frostbite or collapse from the brutal cold. The ice, though thick in places, is unpredictable. Some areas hide cracks underneath the snow. Others are too thin to support weight. One wrong step could send a person plunging into freezing water that numbs the body within seconds. Survival in such conditions is nearly impossible even with equipment, let alone for a prisoner running from guards. When the lake melts in summer, the danger only transforms. The stillness of winter becomes violently moving water, dark and icy even under the sun. The currents are strong, the waves are unpredictable, and hypothermia sets in quickly. Swimming across the lake is not a test of strength, it is a death sentence. There are no nearby villages, no boats waiting on the other side, no roads to run toward. The island sits in the middle of an isolated region of Russia where help, shelter, or safety simply do not exist. Inside the prison's perimeter, escape becomes even less likely. Guards are trained to handle high-risk inmates, surveillance systems watch every movement, and the architecture forces prisoners into narrow, controlled spaces. Even if someone managed to reach the outer boundary, nature itself becomes the final officer standing in their way, a frozen wilderness that does not forgive mistakes and does not offer second chances. Petak Island Prison stands as one of the world's most extreme symbols of isolation, a place where punishment is not measured in bars and chains, but in distance, silence, and the endless cold that surrounds it. For the men trapped there, the frozen lake is a constant reminder that some walls are made by humans and some are built by nature itself. On this remote island, life does not move forward. It simply continues day after day in the shadow of a sentence that has no finish line. Petak Island is more than a prison. It is a world cut off from the world, where escape is not just impossible, it is irrelevant.